call systems, monitoring and research. In order to counter anti-Semitism, we need to know what exactly we should counter. What are the manifestations of anti-Semitism? What phenomenon fuels hatred-based exclusion and prejudice? In other words, we should measure the extent and characteristic of anti-Semitism appearance in order that we determine how we can deal with it. The legal activities. The European Union combats anti-Semitism based on their frameworks, laws, and directives. Member states of EU have tabled legislation which, by varying effectiveness, of course, guarantee instruments for legal action, including crime and civil laws. So, in this point, we are facing nothing but the acts. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker was appointed Hungarian Justice Minister last July. She holds a degree in law and was previously an advisor for Hungarian MEPs and the state minister in charge of EU affairs from 2018 until her ministerial appointment. Dutch political newspaper has included her and ranked 5th on its list of the 20 power women of 2020. So, dear my guest, I would like to invite to the floor Judit Varga, Madam Minister of Justice of Hungary, as the keynote speaker of our panel discussion to share with us her thoughts on the result achieved in Hungary. Madam Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Mr. Chairman, dear Excellencies, Ministers, Secretaries, dear distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you for the European Jewish Association for this kind invitation. I am very honored to be here with you today and to present you the Hungarian experience on combating anti-Semitism. Those who know Hungary are very much aware that one of the symbols of Budapest is the Danube, which divides our capital. The captivating panorama and impressive views of the Danube bridges are worthy of the visitor's memory. For the people of Europe, the Danube is not only a river, but a symbol of historical unity, since it unites the peoples along the Danube. For us, however, the Danube is even more, the symbol of how to facing our history. Hence, since 2010, the names of the lower Danube banks commemorate those Hungarian and foreign heroes who rescued those who were persecuted by the 1944 Arrow Cross terror in Budapest. Every European nation has its heroes who have preserved their humanity and helped their fellow human beings, even in this inhuman period. We can be proud of them, and so we have something to hold on to, even on such a difficult day of remembrance as today. I will mention some of them. Gábor Sztélo, a Hungarian Lutheran priest, saved the lives of hundreds of orphan Jewish children during World War II, and so the Yad Vashem Institute in Jerusalem honored him as one of the righteous among the nations. Raoul Wallenberg, the Swedish embassy secretary, saved the lives of thousands of persecuted Jewish people in 1944 and 45, and after the war was taken to the Soviet Union, where he died under unknown conditions. Henrik Slavik, a Polish journalist, and József Antall the Senior, the father of József Antall, the first freely elected Hungarian prime minister after the change of regime, they helped together 30,000 Polish refugees, including many Jewish people. Following Hungary's German occupation, the Nazis arrested and tortured Slavik. However, he did not break nor testified against his associates, so he was taken to the Mauthausen-Gusen concentration camp where he was murdered. For us, Auschwitz is one of the largest cemeteries in Hungarian history. In the spring and summer of 1944, the majority of the approximately 440,000 Hungarian Jews deported from what was then Hungary were sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp, and 80% of those arriving died. Our Jewish compatriots killed in concentration camps will always be missing from our nation. This is why we have an important place for Auschwitz and the International Holocaust Memorial Day, which we commemorate every year since 2006, along with the Hungarian Holocaust Remembrance Day of 16 April. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is important for us to pass on our knowledge of the past to the future generations and to shape their point of view. That is why we have added the Holocaust Memorial Days to the high school commemorative days, beginning with the 2000-2001 school year. Our aim is to raise awareness of responsibility in the younger generations, to accept and respect each other, to warn them that exclusion, hate speech, anti-Semitism are detrimental to our nation, and that through these we are doing harm to our own souls. History is the sum of all the things we could have avoided, argued Konrad Adenauer. Recent anti-Semitic crimes in the Western world suggest that there are some who never learn from the past. In Hungary, however, there is no need to fear the rise of anti-Semitism, as we have taken a number of measures to prevent our Jewish compatriots from being subjected to violent, even verbal, atrocities or acts or an anti-Semitic nature that are increasingly widespread in the West. It is important to highlight that Budapest has Europe's third largest Jewish community and the world's second largest synagogue. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has several times declared zero tolerance policy against anti-Semitism, and any incident has been promptly followed by high-level official condemnations. Hence, the Jewish community can always rely on the government's support and protection. In this spirit, we have successfully organized the 2019 European Maccabi Games in Budapest, and we introduced a number of particular measures. We enacted the National Holocaust Remembrance Day, established the Holocaust Documentation Center and Memorial Collection, ordered that the life annuity of Holocaust survivors shall be raised by 50%. In 2013, for the 70th anniversary of the deportation of Hungarian Jews, established the Hungarian Holocaust 2014 Memorial Committee, established the Holocaust Memorial Year in 2014, and organized the Israeli-Hungarian Ministries of Justice Conference on the Eradication of Hate Speech online in 2016. The Hungarian government pays special attention to the dialogue with Jews, to the processing and maintenance of our common historical past. We deem it as a priority to raise awareness of the Jewish history and traditions as widely as possible, as we are convinced that spreading this knowledge also has the potential to suppress anti-Semitism and its associated negative views. The government supports the broadest possible and objective dissemination of historical facts and phenomena related to anti-Semitism in public and non-governmental educational institutions, thereby reinforcing the fight against anti-Semitism. It was largely due to the Hungarian government's firm stance against anti-Semitism that by the unanimous decision of 31 countries, Hungary was awarded the chairmanship of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA, in 2015 and 16, with a high international recognition of Jewish and non-Jewish organizations and personalities. As a result of the chairmanship's year-long endeavors and lobbying in EU institutions, EU and IHRA member states, the EU's draft data protection legislation was amended in line with IHRA commitments. Now the text of the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, includes a specific reference to the Holocaust, which ensures researchers free access to Holocaust-related materials throughout the European Union, thereby making sure that the Holocaust does not get forgotten, which was not the case with the original text. In addition, the Hungarian government has adopted the guidelines of the working definition of anti-Semitism developed by IHRA. The criminal code also criminalizes the use of authoritarian symbols, violence against a member of a community, incitement against a community, and public denial of the crimes of National Socialist or communist regimes. The prosecution and the court are increasingly finding the offender guilty. In addition to punishing them, the decisions prescribe special measures for the offenders, such as visiting Holocaust memorial or reading books on the subject. In the case of hate speech, the enforcement of claims is facilitated by the fact that any member of a racial or religious community may assert their personal rights even if not they, but their community is seriously or unjustifiably harmed. And this right is guaranteed at the highest constitutional level in our fundamental law. Taking into account Hungary's commitments to the European Union and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the Prime Minister's office monitored domestic hatred events, in particular anti-Semitic manifestations, and concluded a research agreement with the Brussels-based Institute of the Action and Protection League. Our results are also confirmed by reports of independent organizations. According to a report prepared by the Action and Protection League, the issue of anti-Semitism, like everywhere in Europe, is present in Hungary, but the number of materializations is decreasing year by year. According to the report, the number of crimes committed in hate speech category nearly halved in 2017 compared to 2015. The 2018 report concludes that in contrast to European trends, the number of anti-Semitic hate acts in Hungary decreased in 2018. At the end of this year, 2018, the European Agency for Fundamental Rights published its report, which examined the results of a comprehensive study of hate crimes and discrimination against Jews in 12 European countries. Based on this, Hungary is one of the countries with a lower risk of anti-Semitism, and the Hungarian data is in most respects more favorable than the average of the 12 European countries surveyed. It is important to note that the severity of atrocities cannot be compared to what we have been hearing about in Western Europe on a regular basis. Our synagogues are not attacked by armed men. There is no need to secretly invite worshippers for Shabbat services, and our Jewish compatriots can proudly wear their kippas on the streets. The attacks were isolated cases in Hungary, and even the vast majority of the atrocities against persons were committed by Western European tourists visiting our country. The decline in incidents is certainly positive, and we deem it as a long-lasting achievement that the Holocaust denial has almost completely disappeared from public life in recent years. The Hungarian government endeavors to maintain relations, constructive relations, with both domestic and international Jewish organizations, thus promoting the security of Jews in Hungary. We may say that Hungary is one of the safest countries in Europe, where Jewish culture, according to the leaders of the local Jewish community, is enjoying currently a renaissance. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Stelo, Wallenberg, Slavik, and the rest of the rescuers did not hesitate to put their lives at risk, but saved who could be saved. There are always fewer rescuers than the perpetrators and the indifferents. However, as the Talmud says, whoever saves a life, it is considered as if he saved an entire world. The way we remember the past and the way we act in the present also determine our future. As long as we can raise a generation that can become a hero in difficult situations, our word is not lost. Thank you very much for your attention.
Madam Minister, thank you for your words, for your actions, for your commitment. Hungary has been proving that, if you will, it is not a fairy tale. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our guest in this session, Frank Müller-Rosentritt, who announced the BDS movement is not only anti-Israeli in its method and aims, but for the most part clearly anti-Semitic. He quoted that when the Free Democratic Party, FDP, in the Bundestag submitted a bill into outlaw government support for the anti-Israeli BDS campaign. Mr. Rosentritt is MP of FDP and a co-sponsor of the bill along with one of his FDP colleagues. Dr. João Costa, who is full professor of linguistics at the Faculty of Social and Human Sciences at the Universidade Nova in Lisbon. He was the State Secretary of Education in Portugal. Aharon Tamir, the Deputy Chairman and General Director of March of Living, and since its inception in 1988, belongs this education program. They are bringing individuals from around the world to Poland and Israel to study the history of the Holocaust and to examine the roots of prejudice, intolerance, and hatred. So I kindly ask our guests to share their thoughts in action, initiatives in 5 minutes frame in order to have time audiences question and answer. So, Mr. Frank Müller-Rosenstiel, the floor is yours.
Can everybody see me? Okay, I can see you. Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. In my opinion, foreign policy, and I am a foreign policy maker, must always take a clear viewpoint and follow a viewable course. Taking into account our history, our German history, this viewpoint manifests itself for me out of a sense of responsibility and gratitude in the following 3 aspects. First, setting aside all criticism of the current president, a very deep transatlantic partnership. Second, always standing along those who fight for freedom, democracy, and human rights, and nothing depends where it in Iran, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong. This is the second pillar of my viewpoints. Third, the fact that in Germany, in light of our history, we have an absolute obligation to support the Jewish people and to stand up for each and every day for Israel's right to exist. As someone who was born in the GDR, in the German Democratic Republic, these values are of a particular personal relevance for me. For without the support of those who took to the streets for freedom and democracy and put their lives in the line, I would never stand here as a freely elected member of a German parliament. And to now, in this capacity, I take it in my hand, it's better. And in this capacity, stand up myself for these very values on behalf and of others. We in the Free Democratic Party advocate wherever we can for freedom, democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and also especially close and friendly relationship to Israel. A close relationship between Germany and Israel requires the government to take a credible position and a policy of creating a substantial partnership through government action. And we want to have lessons to learn. Unfortunately, the German federal government attitude towards the Jewish state is marked in many instances by double standards, and thus does not fulfill. As Chancellor Merkel herself phrased it when he spoke in the Knesset, part of Germany's raison d'être. What brings me to this conclusion? Allow me 5 examples. The first is the unbelievable German behavior on the UN when it comes to vote against Israel. Second, the federal government attitude towards the terrorist organization Hezbollah, which it artificially divided into military and political rings. Third, years of passivity and ignorance towards anti-Semitism in parts of the BDS movement. Fourth, closing its eyes to structural problems with the organization as a whole, along with anti-Semitism in the UNRWA education department. And the fifth, the policy of appeasement towards the delusional anti-Semitic mullah regime in Tehran. Since re-entering the German Bundestag, we as Liberal Party have thus undertaken to change these points in order to ensure that the reality of German policy in the Middle East matches the ambition. At first, we began with the Germans voting record on the UN, the BDS movement and Hezbollah. From the position we have, and this is the learning, from the position we have put a fresh face on German foreign policy by stepping up the pressure when it comes to painful topics. While the approach in recent years had been for the federal government to set foreign policy guidelines, we were able to win majorities and introduce a key course correction. That is why the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, one of the most well-known newspapers in Germany, 3 weeks ago, wrote about the emancipation of parliament from the federal government. Now, let us look to initiative individually. The first major shift was in Germany voting behavior in the UN. While the initiative was rejected in the parliament, it nevertheless left its mark. Germany had voted at every given opportunity either against Israel at the UN or abstained. If Germany's voting record at the UN is considered poorly on its own, the impressed is given that Israel must be one of the worst international rogue states for any of the world's autocracies and dictatorships. We repeatedly criticized this lack of backbone and placed it on the agenda until at the end of the year an initial adjustment and behavior could be observed. This shows us that our work is successful and that we need to keep up the pressure. The second initiative dealt with, you mentioned it already, is the BDS movement. We wanted to send a clear and timely message to this movement, large sections of which are not only anti-Israeli, but also very anti-Semitic. That the German Bundestag will not tolerate or support anti-Semitic propaganda. The boycotters have been working for 15 years to isolate Israel politically, economically, culturally and academically. They will no longer be able now to implement this plan as easily in Germany. Thanks to our resolution, the federal government cannot financially or materially support any events organized by the BDS movement or groups which actively pursue its aims. At a time of black and white thinking, we adopted a resolution that is more nuanced. It does not result in any ban on the BDS movement, because it's also freedom of speech. But does it impose any other measures on people who are objectively critical of Israel? The resolution only makes clear that neither